The royal guards were selected from the very best. Each of them could fight 100 opponents on their own and was much stronger than an ordinary soldier. The assassin might appear very skilled, as he could defeat the common soldiers easily. But that was because he wasn't fighting the elites. When the royal guards entered the fight, it was impossible for him to kill and attack as easily. As expected, when the royal guards, the two sovereigns, showed up, the assassin slowed down visibly. 1. The royal guards were much better than ordinary soldiers in terms of skills, armor, and experience. Even though they might not be able to take on the heavy hitters, they were able to wear them down effectively. The ordinary soldiers wore only metal armor, but the royal guards wore steel armor. In terms of defense, both of them were at different levels. A grandmother would spend much more energy killing 10 of these royal guards than killing 100 ordinary soldiers. I thought he was really good. He couldn't even fight our royal guards. Mortimer snickered when he saw the assassin being surrounded by the royal guards. He was sure that they would win. Of course. We spent good money to train the royal guards. How could an ordinary soldier compete against them? Draven laughed lightly. I'll reward 10,000 gold coins to the person who killed the assassin. Mortimer shouted, raising his sword to the sky. Tens of thousands of soldiers got very excited when they heard that. All of them rushed toward the assassin as fast as they could. The fear they felt earlier had melted into desire. 10,000 pieces of gold coins were enough to drive anyone crazy. Quick, kill him. The soldiers shouted angrily and charged forward fearlessly. As they rushed forward, a weak link appeared unintentionally in the defense formation that they were in. The shadow assassin saw the opening and sped up as he rushed toward Draven and Mortimer before they could close the weak link. Don't rush. Steady yourself. Draven frowned and quickly gave out orders. However, it was too late. The shadow assassin was too fast for them. When he saw the weak link, he was unstoppable as he rushed forward. There was a trail of severed limbs wherever he passed. The royal guards of the two sovereigns tried to stop him, but to no avail. The shadow assassin was on a killing spree. Shit, the assassin kept his abilities hidden. We fell for his trap. Mortimer was mortified as he realized something was wrong. The assassin feigned being weak and lured them to surround him when he fought with the royal guards. When the royal guards surrounded the assassin, he suddenly revealed his true abilities. The reason behind this was simple. He just wanted to lure the royal guards away from Mortimer and Draven, weakening the defense around them. As such, it'd be easier to assassinate them. Fuck, he's quite crafty. Retreat. Draven was flustered when his team of royal guards couldn't counter the assassin's attack. He started moving backward with the royal guards covering him. However, at this point, they had already lost their best opportunity to defend themselves. The dark shadow was rushing forward faster than they could retreat. The assassin was just a few feet away from them within a couple of minutes. Sir Vice, we'll block the assassin. Please leave now. A few royal guards withdrew their swords decisively and charged toward the assassin when they realized they weren't going to make it. However, they didn't even last 10 seconds against him. Fuck it, die. Mortimer growled. Instead of retreating, he withdrew his sword and ran toward the assassin. Mortimer, calm down. Draven's face paled, and he tried to stop him. But it was too late. Mortimer rushed forward and swung his sword toward the assassin's neck. However, the dark shadow caught his blade instantly as his sword pierced Mortimer's shoulder. Who are you? Mortimer asked, gritting his teeth. He didn't yell as he tried to suppress the pain. The dark shadow said nothing. He suddenly grabbed Mortimer's collar and flung him skyward. Mortimer soared through the air like a cannonball. He was flung a few hundred yards away beyond the castle's main entrance, landing heavily in the front yard. A loud noise followed his crash, and Mortimer left a human-shaped hole on the ground. He spat out blood as he wailed in pain. The impact had fractured many bones in his body. Mortimer! Eloise, who was standing guard at the main entrance, quickly turned. She held her sword against Mortimer's neck and shouted, Ask your army to surrender now or die. Standing outside the castle, Draven was stunned to see Mortimer being thrown away. He quickly threw his weapon down and started running. He regretted being arrogant. If he had known the assassin was this strong and powerful, he would have retreated in time like Atticus and Ignatius. He wouldn't have put his life at risk. Still trying to escape, the dark shadow smirked and moved at lightning speed. He grabbed Draven's collar from behind and lifted him up. "Please, don't kill me. I'll give you anything you want." Draven was scared and quickly pleaded, trying to strike a deal. "Kill you? Isn't that too easy on you?" With one smooth motion, the dark shadow assassin flung Draven skyward. He then leapt upward and kicked him in the stomach. Draven was sent flying a couple of 100 yards, away like a ball above numerous soldiers. He sailed past the main entrance of the castle and landed inside. Many injuries and bruises covered his body, and he coughed up blood as he groaned in pain. "Seize him." Eloise, who had been waiting for quite a while, quickly ordered her soldiers to tie Draven up. They had already captured 2 of the 4 northern sovereigns. The castle would no longer be at risk when the other 2 were captured. "Your turn now." Outside the castle, Dustin lifted his head suddenly. His sharp gaze landed on Atticus and Ignatius in the distance. Lifting his sword, he charged toward them. Dustin's plan was simple. He wanted to capture the leaders before anything else. When the battle started, he let Austin and the Draken Guardians take on the majority of the enemy. Then he would take the opportunity to attack the core and capture the 4 northern sovereigns. With his abilities, he might not be able to fight the large troops, but he could easily capture the leaders among the soldiers. To prevent the 4 northern sovereigns from running away, he kept his true potential hidden when he first got into the battle. He wanted to show them that he was weak. He kept this cover until Draven and Mortimer's royal guards were lured away, at which point he revealed his true abilities and captured both of them. Now that Draven and Mortimer had been captured, he only had to deal with Atticus and Ignatius. The army surrounding the castle would surrender when the 2 were captured. "It's your turn now." Dustin focused his gaze, and as soon as he found them, he charged toward them with his sword. "Quick, stop him. Over here, hurry. Don't let him get any closer." Atticus and Ignatius were shouting for help, looking panicked. They had seen many skilled fighters on the battlefield, yet even the best fighters would die when surrounded. However, this assassin was completely different. Instead of showing signs of fatigue, he was getting better and more formidable by the minute. It was unbelievable that the troop of at least a few 1,000 soldiers couldn't stop the lone assassin. This person was comparable to Seth Hughes, the Sword Whisperer. When did the West Leucosian monarchy acquire such a skilled fighter? Protect the sovereigns. Atticus and Ignatius. Royal guards quickly formed a defensive formation in hopes of slowing Dustin down when they saw him rushing toward them with an unstoppable momentum. They knew that they were unable to Dustin. They only wanted to buy more time for Atticus and Ignatius to escape safely. "Sir, ignore the commotion. Get in the car." A few trusted royal guards pushed Atticus and Ignatius into the car without hesitation. They had already sealed the roads around the castle when they surrounded it. There would be no obstruction on the road, and their journey should be smooth sailing. The royal guards only had to hold on for a few minutes longer for Atticus and Ignatius to get to a safe area and hide. It wouldn't be too late if they showed up after the soldiers had killed the assassin. Not so fast. When he saw them leaving, Dustin swung his sword, and it transformed into a dark light. He dashed forward, aiming toward the car. Ultimate defense. A few hundred royal guards threw their weapons away and drew their shields, forming a sturdy human wall. They knew they couldn't fight the enemy and had chosen to defend with full force. Get lost. Dustin didn't avoid it and crashed right into the human wall. His sword danced and blood splattered on the ground. Wherever his blade struck, everything would be split into halves. It didn't matter if it was a human or a shield. Even though he was unstoppable, it was obvious that there was more resistance. Destin's speed had been slowed down significantly. Hold your ground. We must not retreat. The leaders of the royal guard shouted to their team. They were buying time with the lives of other human beings. However, their difference in strength was obvious. They could all sacrifice themselves, but they still wouldn't be able to stop Destin's attack. They could, at most, slow him down. Start the car. Start it now. Atticus and Ignatius cried urgently in the car. One of the royal guards got into the driver's seat, revved the engine, and floored the accelerator. The car drove away like a cheetah sprinting and left the battlefield quickly. The people in the car let out a long sigh of relief. As they got further away from the battlefield, fuck, that was dangerous. We were so close to being captured. Atticus wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and could still feel the fear within him. It was a good thing they left first. He was fortunate to have his royal guards sacrificing themselves to buy him time. If that assassin got any closer, they might just end up being captured alive, just like Draven and Mortimer. If that happened, all their efforts would go down the drain, and they might even lose their status and lives. That's weird. When did the monarchy acquire such a skilled fighter? Even a few thousand soldiers couldn't stop him. Ignatius frowned, lost in thoughts. According to their investigation, the monarchy had two skilled fighters, Jackson Steele and Albert Horst. Albert Horst was held captive by Julius Reese, and Jackson Steele was on the battlefield, even if there was another elite team hidden in the castle. The four northern sovereigns wouldn't be caught off guard. The assassin was the only factor that was beyond their expectation. It wouldn't be an issue if it was a normal assassin. However, the assassin was too powerful. He was so skilled that he could easily behead them despite the troops surrounding them. The terrifying sense of doom was beyond what Albert, Horst and Jason Steele could instill. It was a serious threat for them. I think we should report this to Grand General Reese as soon as possible. We must be very careful. This assassin is too powerful. If he was on a mission to behead us, we wouldn't be able to prevent it. Atticus said with a grave expression. That's right. Contact Grand General Reese immediately. We'll ask him to quell the battle himself with his troops. We must use this opportunity to kill the assassin. If not, we'd be in a lot of trouble. Ignatius said in a low voice. Right away. The royal guard on the passenger seat heard the order and immediately took out his phone to send a message. Suddenly, the driver stepped on the brake. The tires skidded across the road, leaving for long tire marks. Atticus and Ignatius jolted forward in the car, and their heads slammed against the back of the front seats. What's going on? Why did we stop? Atticus massaged his head, sounding annoyed. Sir, there's someone blocking the road ahead. The driver pointed to the front. When they finally got a closer look, they saw a middle-aged man in black armor with a spear in his hand standing fearlessly at the crossroad. It's Elijah Valor, the Marquis of Silvercrest. When they saw him, Atticus and Ignatius frowned immediately. They had no idea that Elijah Valor would take part in this battle. And from the looks of it, he wasn't on their side. It must be made known that in the West Lucosian sovereigns, Elijah had always ranked first when it came to fighting skills among the 8 of them. Even if the remaining 7 joined forces, they'd still lose to Elijah Valor. It might be worth a try if they still had their royal guards with them. However, they only had 2 of their royal guards with them. It was impossible for them to fight Elijah, Atticus Gleam, and Ignatius Vance. How dare you stage a rebellion? Get out of the car now and surrender. If not, don't blame me when I have to kill both of you. Elijah bellowed. His voice was like thunder as it echoed continuously around them. Sir, should I run him over? The driver asked. Heck no. Atticus said exasperatedly, Elijah is a very skilled fighter. He's never lost in a battle. If we run him over, we'd be dead meat. What should we do then? Are we really going to surrender? Ignatius was a little nervous. Back up, we'll escape from another direction. Atticus ordered. Yes, sir. The driver stepped on the accelerator and made a turn, speeding away. However, a dark figure descended from the sky, like a harbinger. He landed just 100 yards away from the car and blocked its way. The figure was none other than Dustin, who had just fought his way out of a siege. Dustin was bathed in blood, exuding a dangerous presence. His black shirt was now dark crimson from the enemy's blood. The celestial blade in his hand was quivering and buzzing softly. It felt as if he would attack any time. Damn, how is he so fast? Adiku's face paled when he saw Dustin standing before them. He thought that the royal guards would keep Dustin occupied for a while. He had no idea they had been defeated, and Dustin was already catching up with them. We're trapped. We're in trouble now. Ignatius was getting anxious. They were fighting alone now. They were trapped between two skilled fighters and couldn't fight back. It'd be better if it were just Elijah. He might not kill them due to their status. However, this assassin was different. They saw how he killed ruthlessly and efficiently on the battlefield. If they resisted him, he might just kill them immediately. Atticus, what should we do now? Ignatius asked, gulping in fear. Atticus sighed when he heard Ignatius and said with despair, "What else can we do? We have nowhere to run now. If we don't want to die, we can only surrender." Surrender! Ignatius frowned. Atticus, we just staged a rebellion. If we surrender, we'll be exiled if we're lucky. If not, they'll publicly execute us. Regardless of the outcome, we're doomed. Of course, I know that. However, we really have no other choice. Atticus glanced at Dustin, who was ready to kill, and looked at Elijah, who was still standing bravely. He said bitterly, rather than being killed, "We would at least be alive if we surrender. Besides, Grand General Reese hasn't made his move yet. As long as we're alive, we can still regain what we lost." Ignatius suddenly lit up when he heard that. That's right. Grand General Reese is still on our side. We haven't lost completely. Let's surrender. We just need to be patient for a while longer before we welcome a brighter future. Atticus took a deep breath. All right, we'll surrender. Ignatius nodded. It might be humiliating to surrender, but they could at least stay alive. They only needed to be patient and wait for the right moment to start again. Then they would work together with Julius Reese to take over West Lucosia. After a short discussion, Atticus and Ignatius got out of the car one by one and shouted, "Hold on! We are ready to negotiate. Don't attack!" Their shouts stopped Dustin and Elijah, who were getting ready to attack. "Humph, old foxes like you know what's good for you. If you were a few minutes slower, I would be leaving spear marks all over your bodies." Elijah dragged his spear on the road as he walked toward them, leaving sparks flying. "Marquis of Silvercrest, what are you doing here?" Atticus asked inquisitively. "The four northern sovereigns started a rebellion, and I am a loyal servant to the country. How could I possibly ignore this? I rushed here through the night to quell the insurgency caused by you bastards." Elijah huffed. "Marquis of Silvercrest, there must have been a misunderstanding. We're avenging the prince. We're here to capture the killer with our soldiers," Atticus tried to explain. Atticus gleam, "Do you take me for a fool? Look at where we are now. Do you still think that you can escape?" Elijah sneered coldly. A perfunctory speech like this would only fool the public. If they thought it could fool Elijah, it'd be an insult to his intelligence. "Elijah, let us be honest with you now that it has come to this. We'll tell you everything." Ignatius took 2 steps forward and said seriously, "After the death of the prince, we need a new leader. Who do you think is most suitable to be the new ruler of West Lucosia?" "What are you trying to say?" Elijah sneered. "I believe you're well aware that the best candidate is Julius Reese, the Grand General of the Iron Stallion Cavalry," Ignatius said, raising his head. He added, "Only when the Grand General becomes the ruler of West of Lucosia can we have better development, more land, and more military reserves. This is inevitable, and there's nothing you can do to change it. You're smart. I trust that you know what is in your best favor. Are you saying that I should join forces with you?" Elijah wore a cryptic smile on his face. "That's right." Ignatius nodded. He said proudly, "The Grand General is very skilled in martial arts, powerful, and talented. He's more than qualified to be the new ruler. As the saying goes, a wise man will choose their leader. If you pledge your allegiance to the Grand General, your future will be in good hands. You'll have everything you ever wish for." That's right, Marquis of Silvercrest. Atticus followed suit. "We used to serve the same prince, and we got along just fine. As long as we serve a wise leader, our lives will definitely become better." That doesn't sound too bad. Elijah's lips curved upward. "Does that mean you'll join us?" Ignatius' eyes lit up when he thought he had successfully persuaded Elijah. "Marquis of Silvercrest, you're an excellent fighter. If you help us deal with this assassin, we'll definitely put in a good word or two for you with the Grand General." Atticus said and pointed toward Dustin. "Hey, hold on. Who said I agreed to join forces with you?" With a devilish smile, Elijah added, "I'm a very loyal servant to my country, not like you bastards. Please do not impose your corrupt thinking on my noble sentiments." Elijah Valor, don't you know what's good for you? How dare you go against the Grand General? Ignatius growled. "So what?" Elijah shrugged and said indifferently, "I've already consulted the oracle. Julius Reese is not fated to be the new ruler. You have placed your baits on the wrong person." "Nonsense! The Grand General was born to be a ruler. There's no one like him. The Grand General is destined to be the new Prince of West Lucosia." Ignatius shouted with his eyes wide open. Elijah laughed and said with a vague smile, "Are you sure you'll succeed this time?" "Of course." Ignatius puffed up his chest and said confidently, "The Grand General is now fully prepared. No one will be able to go against him. Let me be honest with you. In addition to the 50,000 soldiers inside the city, we have a troop of 100,000 soldiers stationed outside the city. We have the whole kingdom surrounded. It doesn't matter if you can fly. You won't be able to make any difference." "Is that so? If you're this invincible, why are you in a ditch now?" Elijah laughed. "We underestimated our enemy and fell into their trap. But it's not a big deal. It won't change the final outcome," Ignatius said. He continued, "Elijah Valor, if you know what's good for you, you should help the Grand General ascend to the throne together with us. As such, you'll get to enjoy the riches with us." Then he threatened in a low voice, "If not, I'm afraid that you'll suffer a terrible fate." "A terrible fate?" Elijah suddenly burst out laughing. "Oh, Ignatius, you're already dead meat. And yet, here you are, still spewing bullshit. I'm not sure if you can call this confidence or foolishness. Let me tell you a cruel truth. The Southern For Sovereigns have already formed an alliance, and we have gathered a lot of loyal servants of the country. As we speak, your troops outside the city have been surrounded, and they have already surrendered. Death is the only thing waiting for people like you." Upon hearing Elijah's words, Atticus and Ignatius were visibly taken aback, finding it difficult to accept. "Impossible." Ignatius immediately rejected the idea. "A well-trained and well-equipped army of 100,000. Surrendering? No way." "You're absolutely right." Atticus scoffed. He added, "Even if the Southern For Sovereigns combined their forces, there's no conceivable way they could defeat our 100,000 troops overnight. You're just trying to make us panic." The combined military might of the Southern For Sovereigns hovered around 2 to 300,000, even if they mobilized their entire force. Swiftly overcoming their substantial force of 100,000 proved to be a formidable challenge. After all, the defenders had strategically fortified their positions, providing considerable resilience even against odds multiple times their own. Moreover, the four sovereigns couldn't afford to deploy their entire military strength, as a portion had to be held in reserve to safeguard their cities from unforeseen threats. Given these circumstances, triumphing against their formidable army became an even more difficult task. A direct confrontation might not work, but if we shift our strategy, the scenario changes entirely, Elijah said, his tone hinting at amusement. He continued, "Consider your soldiers. They have loved ones, family, and friends. Imagine the reaction if their close ones learn about their rebellion. And suppose we bring the family and friends of those officers to persuade them in the military camps. What do you think the outcome might be?" Elijah's words left Atticus and Ignatius momentarily stunned, their bodies frozen in place. Beads of cold sweat formed on their foreheads. Their initial covert siege on Chalestria, though shrouded in a veil of loyalty, would inevitably be perceived as a rebellion by the general public. As rumors spread, the military ranks were already plagued by doubt. Though bound by orders, each soldier harbored uncertainty in the face of unexpected circumstances, especially if Elijah's plan unfolded with officers, families influencing sentiments in the camps. The entire army might crumble in spirit. In such a scenario, surrendering without a fight became a stark reality. As seasoned warriors, Atticus and Ignatius recognized the critical importance of morale. When doubt permeated the ranks about the righteousness of their cause, victory was already slipping away. How about it, scared? Elijah sneered, his eyes watching them as if they were jesters performing on a stage. "No, that's impossible. You must be lying. If our 100,000 troops truly surrendered, why haven't we received any news at all?" Ignatius remained incredulous. "That's your problem, not mine." Elijah shrugged. "Humph, stop trying to intimidate us. Even if you say all that, it's useless. You can't deceive us because your words have a glaring inconsistency." "An unexplainable gap," Atticus said, narrowing his eyes at Elijah. "Oh, really? What inconsistency?" Elijah asked with a smile. "If the Southern for Sovereigns really joined forces and your colossal army is advancing, and you've persuaded our 100,000 troops, then where are the people?" Ignatius sneered. He continued, emphasizing the lack of evidence. "You've said so much, yet we only see you here. Where are the other 3 sovereigns? Where are your thousands of troops? Are they hiding, or do they simply not exist? Everything you're saying is just a lie." "That's right. If you're up for it, bring them forward. And let's have a face-to-face conversation." Atticus chimed in. Undoubtedly, Elijah's words packed a punch, adeptly pinpointing their most vulnerable spot. Yet, the challenge remained, as he was merely talking without providing any concrete evidence. Hence, Elijah's words lacked credibility. Elijah chuckled, treating them like jesters. "Even in such dire straits, the 2 of you refuse to give up." He continued, "Fine, since you insist on seeing the evidence, I'll show you." He raised his hand and flicked his fingers. A golden streak shot into the sky, exploding with a resounding bang. It transformed into a myriad of golden spakes, gently descending like confetti. After a moment, rhythmic footsteps echoed from the distant end of the street, growing louder as they approached. Atticus and Ignatius could feel the ground beneath their feet subtly vibrating. As the footsteps advanced, the ground tremors intensified. Upon sensing this, Atticus and Ignatius felt an unsettling premonition. Before they could comprehend what was happening, a multitude of silhouettes appeared on the horizon. The sheer number covered the entire street, extending beyond their line of sight. How is this possible? Staring at the densely packed soldiers ahead, Atticus and Ignatius were dumbfounded. They had harbored a glimmer of hope, thinking Elijah's words were just an attempt to sow fear. Now any remaining defiance was drained from their faces. Their 100,000-strong army guarded the city gates. External forces could not have breached them. The sudden appearance of this formidable new force meant only one thing: their own troops had indeed surrendered. Elijah had spoken the truth. Ultimately, it was Atticus and Ignatius who had been deceiving themselves. "Atticus, Ignatius, what you see now is only a fraction of it," Elijah said. "Our alliance has 3 more armies, led by the 3 sovereigns, advancing rapidly from 3 directions toward the castle." He went on, "If I'm not mistaken, their forces should already be near the castle, perhaps even clashing with your people. Your forces are now trapped. Unless you surrender, complete annihilation is only a matter of time. I say your situation is hopeless, with no chance of turning the tide." Elijah spoke with conviction, rendering the two men pale and drenched in sweat. Overwhelmed by a fragile mental state, Atticus sank to the ground in defeat. "We're done for, completely done for. The army outside the city is captured, and the army inside is surrounded. We're defeated on all fronts." Atticus lamented, his face drained of color. "No, we haven't lost yet." Ignatius swallowed hard, feigning composure. He added, "Though our army may have faltered, as long as Grand General Reese remains undefeated, we still have hope to turn the tables." Exactly. As long as Grand General Reese is alive, we still have hope. Atticus nodded. He had found new hope. Julius commanded a significant share of West Lucosia's military might. With credible justification, he held the ability to activate the military insignia and deploy the formidable Black Dragon Army, totaling 200,000 soldiers. The military strength of the four sovereigns in the south paled in comparison to the might of the Black Dragon Army. Atticus and Ignatius just needed Julius to lead the charge, and the tables would turn completely. All right, enough of your squabbling. Whether Julius becomes prince or not, you'll find out tonight," Elijah said impatiently, waving his hand. He ordered his men, "Bring these rebels in and keep a close eye on them." "Yes, sir." A squad of guards promptly approached, tightly binding Atticus and Ignatius. "Elijah, we're all sovereigns here. It's disrespectful to treat us like this in public," Atticus protested. "Disrespectful?" Elijah sneered. "Both of you are now prisoners. What respect are you talking about?" "Elijah, the outcome is still uncertain. Have you considered the consequences if Grand General Reese ascends the throne? And you've treated us like this." Atticus frowned. "He's right. You're in power now, and that might not last forever. It's wise to leave room for future interactions. Don't go too far." Ignatius chimed in. "Whether you two will live through tonight is questionable. Don't dare to rant in front of me. Gag them." "I don't want to hear any more noise," Elijah ordered again. "You." Before Atticus and Ignatius could say more, their mouths were forcefully sealed, and they could only make muffled sounds. "Take them away." Elijah gestured, and the two were escorted onto a waiting car. Then Elijah's gaze shifted to Dustin. "You look familiar. Have we met before?" "We have. I'm from the castle," Dustin replied. "Oh, really?" Elijah narrowed his eyes, expressing skepticism. "I'm familiar with all the top talents in the castle, but you, I don't recognize you. What's your background?" "My identity will be revealed in due time. Farewell, sir." Dustin saluted Elijah, then with a swift step, he turned into a shadow and vanished down the street. Such speed! Elijah was surprised. With a deep understanding of martial arts, he deemed himself to be among the top 5 fighters in all of West Lucosia. The person who had just left gave Elijah a sense of profound mystery. Vaguely, he even saw shadows of the sword whisperer, Seth Hughes, reinforce the castle. Without dwelling on it, Elijah immediately led a considerable force toward the castle. At the castle gates, Draven and Mortimer, the two sovereigns, were bound and suspended at the entrance. "Halt! Cease all actions!" Eloise brandished her sword and shouted, "If you don't stop, I'll kill your lords." As soon as she spoke, half of the soldiers halted their movements. They hesitated and were uncertain. The tumultuous battlefield suddenly quieted down. "Drop your weapons," Eloise commanded once more. Soldiers glanced at each other, undecided, their gazes focusing on their respective generals. "Drop your weapons," she reiterated. She swung her long sword, placing it against Draven's neck. The sharp blade cut through the flesh, and a trickle of blood seeped out, dripping along the edge of the blade. Feeling the cold sensation on his neck, Draven nearly wet himself. He immediately shouted, "Are you all deaf? Drop your weapons! Quick, drop your weapons!" Several commanders bellowed, alarmed by the peril their lord faced. The clatter of discarded weapons resonated through the air. After the command was issued, Draven's soldiers dropped their weapons. "And you, tell your men to drop their weapons." Eloise turned her attention to Mortimer, her blade now pressed against his throat. "Drop your weapons." Faced with her fierce gaze, Mortimer shouted for his men to surrender. The metallic clatter of weapons hitting the ground echoed as Mortimer's soldiers followed suit. Approximately 60% of the battlefield had yielded. Meanwhile, the remaining 40%, though still armed, displayed a palpable sense of unease and confusion. In warfare, diminished morale posed the greatest risk. Upon witnessing their comrades surrendering, it left them hesitant to initiate an attack. Furthermore, the absence of their lord added a critical dimension to the situation. With tens of thousands of soldiers left without a leader, the lack of command left them uncertain about their next course of action. "Soldiers, your lord has abandoned you. Will you still fight for him?" Eloise's powerful voice resonated across the scene. She continued, "I understand you acted under orders, but if you surrender now, I can overlook today's events. However, resist, and I will ensure severe consequences for all of you and your families. Consider your choices carefully." A palpable sense of authority emanated from her. Did our lord actually manage to escape? What's our next move? Don't look at me. Who am I supposed to ask? This war shouldn't have happened in the first place. It's clearly a rebellion. If the truth comes out, we're all in trouble. The followers of Sir Vyse and Sir Thorn have already surrendered. Maybe we should surrender, too? Her Highness has assured us there won't be any further repercussions. The soldiers whispered among themselves, grappling with the situation. The absence of military orders kept them from making rash moves. Suddenly, a rhythmic and thunderous sound of marching footsteps emerged from all directions. A large contingent of fully armed troops appeared at the end of every street, creating a formidable encirclement around the castle. Their superior numbers and imposing demeanor contrasted sharply with the demoralized rebels. What's happening? Where did these people come from? Look at their flags. They seem to be troops from the Southern for sovereigns. What? Didn't our forces secure the city gates? How did these foreign troops breach our defenses? Could it be that our external forces have been defeated? In the face of the sudden appearance of reinforcements for the castle, the rebel forces were visibly shaken, and their panic was evident. "Those who surrender will be spared," Eloise declared once more, her voice ringing out with authority. "Those who surrender will be spared," Austin declared as he lifted his sword, the call echoing with authority. "Those who surrender will be spared." Jackson and the Draken Guardians shouted in unison, "Those who surrender will be spared." The surrounding castle reinforcements added their voices to the powerful chorus. Their voices reverberated through the skies, lingering in the air. The echo of "those who surrender will be spared" lingered in the airspace above the castle, casting a shadow over the panic-stricken rebels who now seemed utterly devoid of any fighting spirit. A symphony of clattering ensued as an increasing number of soldiers dropped their weapons. Even the most tenacious were swiftly subdued, rendering the once defiant castle defenses feeble. The capture of the four sovereigns, along with the remaining rebels scattering for their lives, left the besieged forces with limited options: either surrender or face imminent demise. In the face of an unidentified adversary, they were unwilling to lay down their lives in a futile struggle. "I will honor the promise I just made. Anyone who willingly surrenders will be pardoned," Eloise assured. Her tone was now gentler, devoid of the earlier imposing aura. The surrendered soldiers were both relieved and embarrassed. "Thank you, Your Highness, for your mercy." Many military officers humbly kneeled on the ground to express their heartfelt gratitude. "Thank you, Your Highness, for your mercy." Officers and soldiers alike kneeled in submission, transforming the once tumultuous battlefield into a sea of capitulation. They were sincerely grateful for Eloise's kindness. She turned her attention to Draven and Mortimer, who were still suspended at the castle gate, looking thoroughly disheveled. "How about you two?" We surrender." Draven and Mortimer exchanged glances, choosing to yield. With the arrival of reinforcements for the castle, it became evident that their external forces had suffered a resounding defeat. The vanguard attacking the castle now kneeled in submission, turning Draven and Mortimer into hostages. At least, putting on the facade of surrender seemed to be their only recourse in this situation. However, deep down, a sliver of hope remained. If Grand General Rhys could lead the Black Dragon army to their aid, there might still be a chance to turn the tide. The Black Dragon army was formidable against the forces of the 8 sovereigns. However, they were confined to various major fortresses without military insignia, making large-scale troop movements impossible. Moreover, it necessitated Julius's direct intervention. This was the primary reason for his delayed return. Of course, the most critical aspect was the unforeseen flaws in what seemed like an infallible plan. Firstly, the military forces of the Southern for Sovereigns arrived too swiftly. The 100,000 defending troops outside the city mysteriously surrendered after an unexplained defeat. Additionally, the existence of an unknown top-tier warrior within the castle caught them off guard, leading to the capture of the Four Sovereigns and the flight of the rebels. This resulted in the surrender of tens of thousands of troops. Now, Draven and Mortimer's only hope rested on Julius leading the Black Dragon army to their aid. You two may not be the masterminds, you are accomplices. Capital punishment is avoidable, but you won't escape judgment, Eloise declared coldly. She went on, "Take them away and guard them closely. No one should approach without my orders." Understood. Several guards approached, forcefully taking the bounded Draven and Mortimer away. General Steele, handle the surrendering forces. Too many lives have been lost today, and I don't want to see more casualties, she instructed, looking at Jackson. Understood. Jackson nodded solemnly. Your Highness, your compassion is admirable. 4 figures emerged from the army, creating a path as they walked. They were the Southern for Sovereigns Elijah, Lincoln, Tyrus, and Wyatt. We arrived late to the rescue. Apologies for startling you, Your Highness, Lincoln humbly greeted. Sir Blaze, no need for apologies. Without your timely arrival, the castle would have been in danger. You all are deserving heroes, Eloise said and walked toward Lincoln. The swift deployment of reinforcements by the Southern for Sovereigns caught her by surprise. It was evident that these men arrived promptly, traversing through the night without any delay. Protecting the castle and defending West Lucosia is our responsibility, he remarked with a smile. Absolutely. If it weren't for His Highness saving my life back then, I wouldn't be enjoying the good days I have now. As long as we can ensure the castle's safety, I'm more than willing to risk my life for it, Wyatt declared boldly. He was known for his straightforwardness and loyalty among the Southern for Sovereigns. Your Highness, from now on, we are family. If the castle is in trouble, I will wholeheartedly support it, Tyrus said with a warm smile. Family? Eloise raised an eyebrow, glancing at Austin beside her. Then she smiled. Yes, you all are His Highness's dear brothers, so naturally, we are family. Your Highness, forgive my directness. Although the immediate crisis is resolved, there's still a significant threat, Elijah interjected. What do you mean? She pretended not to know. Grand General Rhys is the real danger, the rebels or his men. Even though we've caught some, he remains a major threat. You all understand Julius commands a vast army, so losing a few underlings means nothing to him. He might even launch a more intense attack, he warned. True, Julius is cunning and daring. We must be cautious, Tyrus agreed, nodding. Why fear? We'll stand our ground. With the 4 of us and the castle's strength, it's possible to handle Julius alone, Wyatt shrugged dismissively. Sir Mitchell, have you considered if Julius calls upon the Black Dragon army? How will we react? Elijah countered. The Black Dragon army. Wyatt frowned. He added, no way. The Black Dragon Army only recognizes His Highness and the military insignia. Even Julius, as the Grand General, has no authority for large-scale mobilization without ongoing warfare. True, but now that His Highness is deceased and until a new one ascends, Julius is the most influential figure in West Lucosia, Elijah explained. He went on, additionally, having served as the Grand General of the Black Dragon Army for years, he likely has gathered a group of loyalists. For a good reason, he could easily mobilize tens of thousands of troops. It's not a big issue. A good reason. Julius rebelled and committed grave crimes. What reason could there be? The Black Dragon Army consists of loyal soldiers. I don't believe they join a rebellion, Wyatt argued. Julius rebelled, but except for us, who would know? As for the reason, it's simple. After His Highness's death, the 8 sovereigns rebelled to seize power, Elijah said with a shrug. He added, as the Grand General, Julius could call upon the Black Dragon Army to quell the rebellion. It's only a matter of killing all who know the truth. Ultimately, he decides the narrative. What killed to cover it up? Wyatt's face instantly darkened. He added, you're not joking, are you? The Northern Four Sovereigns are all Julius people. How could he possibly indiscriminately slaughter them? Those who achieve great things must be ruthless. For someone like Julius, with extensive military experience, sacrificing some soldiers is nothing, Elijah said calmly. He went on, of course, this is the ultimate plan. Suppose the Northern Four Sovereigns successfully seize power and retrieve the Marshal's military insignia. In that case, he won't need to take such risks. He can ascend directly. He concluded, however, if the Northern Four Sovereigns fail, for the sake of his grand ambition, I believe Julius will resort to any means necessary. The more ambitious someone was, the more unconventional their actions could become. Previously, under Rufus' rule, Julius concealed his true intentions, patiently biding his time. Now, with Rufus gone, Julius was free from constraints and emerged as an unstoppable force akin to an unleashed tempest. If that's the case, we should indeed be cautious, Wyatt said. The Black Dragon Army was the strongest force in West Lucosia and possibly the world. Whoever controlled the Black Dragon Army could dominate them all. As the Grand General, if Julius exploited the pretext of restoring order in the name of loyalty to the throne, there would be a considerable likelihood of controlling the Black Dragon Army. In the inevitable conflict that followed, the lines between right and wrong blurred. Only the victorious could lay claim to the throne, while the vanquished were relegated to the status of the defeated. Esteemed lords, as the pillars of West Lucosia, your insights are invaluable. Do you have any strategies to suggest? Eloise inquired cautiously. I'm good at fighting, not so much at strategizing, Wyatt said helplessly. Me neither, Tyrus said, shaking his head. Sir Blaise, you're wise and experienced. How about offering some insights? Elijah looked at Lincoln. They successfully persuaded the army at the castle gates to surrender due to Lincoln, a strategy of influencing officers through their friends and family. Many officers, although unafraid of death themselves, cared about the well-being of their loved ones. Through this emotional approach, they managed to subdue the 100,000-strong army without a single loss. I may not be a genius, but I do have two immature ideas, Lincoln said. Oh, Sir Blaise, please share. Eloise's eyes lit up. Julius was a massive threat, and the sooner they dealt with him, the better. The first idea, for the simplest and most effective stabilization of the situation, is to immediately select a new Prince of West Lucosia and announce it to the world, Lincoln suggested. He went on, this way, even if Julius wants to seize power, he won't find any excuse to deploy troops. Otherwise, it would be considered rebellion. The Black Dragon Army's leaders won't heed his orders. Great idea. Wyatt's eyes sparkled. Once the prince is decided, Julius won't stir up much trouble unless he burns all bridges and risks everything to rebel. but that's basically a suicidal path. Exactly, Tyrus nodded. In my opinion, we might as well have Austin ascend tonight, then announce it to the world tomorrow morning. His daughter was already engaged to Austin. The sooner Austin ascended to the throne, the sooner Tyrus' daughter would become the new princess consort. While the idea has merit, there's a drawback, Elijah said. He went on, for a new prince to ascend, we need the king's approval and officials' testimony. Without it, convincing people is challenging. He added, also, obtaining the king's consent and officials' testimony would take at least 3 days. In our current situation, we simply can't afford to wait that long. Really, is it that complicated for a new prince to ascend? Wyatt frowned. He added, everyone knows Austin is Prince Rufus' son. It should be a natural choice for him to become the next prince of West Lucosia. Yeah, they say desperate times call for desperate measures, Tyrus chimed in. Do you two think ascending the throne is like choosing a mountain king? Just planting a flag, having a few drinks, and saying some bold words will get the job done. Don't be ridiculous, Elijah said, somewhat exasperated. He went on. The position of Prince of West Lucosia is not just about the people of West Lucosia. It affects all the people in the world. If West Lucosia is in chaos, the world will be in chaos. If West Lucosia is stable, the world will be stable. To put it bluntly, the weight of West Lucosia's throne is not inferior to the king's position. It's such a crucial position. Do you really think it's as simple as making a choice? Just sit down and become one. Sir Valor has a point. Although I'd like Austin to ascend to stabilize the military, inheriting the throne is no child's play. If it's too rushed, it might backfire and give others an excuse to meddle. Eloise shook her head. Without proper procedures, the throne of West Lucosia carried too much weight. It wouldn't count without the king's decree and officials' testimony. You guys are too bound by rules, overthinking everything and missing opportunities, Wyatt retorted. If Austin can't ascend now, once Julius' army presses in, won't we be done for? Tyrus furrowed his brow. Sir Blaise, don't you have another solution? Just spit it out. No need to beat around the bush, Elijah said, looking at Lincoln again. The second method is a bit more complicated and riskier. With a success rate of around 50%, Lincoln said. 50%? That's low but worth a shot. What's the plan? Wyatt asked cautiously. Execute a targeted decapitation operation, Lincoln said, dropping a bombshell. He continued, right now, our biggest threat is Julius. If he dies, his generals won't pose much of a threat. The crisis in the castle would naturally be resolved. Decapitation operation. Wyatt rubbed his chin, his expression serious. He added, it seems feasible, but the risk is too high. Julius has numerous troops and skilled individuals. Assassinating him is an immensely challenging task, given the substantial forces and formidable experts surrounding him. Yeah, with the war already underway, Julius will undoubtedly be cautious and guard against assassinations. Among us, the strongest is only the Marquis of Silvercrest, Tyrus said, looking at Elijah. Hey, why are you looking at me? I'm not eager to go and die. Elijah flatly refused, considering the ultimate grandmasters possibly present in Julius's inner circle. Attempting an assassination raised doubts about its possibility and posed significant risks. Undertaking such a mission could have ultimately led to dire consequences for those involved. If the Marquis of Silvercrest won't go, who else is suitable? Tyrus furrowed his brow. He continued, we don't have anyone powerful and fearless enough to be an assassin. Where can we find one on short notice? Let me go. I have some confidence. I can go one-on-one with Julius. Jackson suddenly stepped forward. 1. As the captain of the Royal Guards, his strength was approaching the level of an ultimate grandmother. He might even have a fighting chance against a true ultimate grandmother if he went all out. Jackson's announcement immediately captured the attention of everyone present. Eloise hesitated for a moment, opening her mouth as if she wanted to say something. After all, he was the captain of the royal guards and someone she trusted. Hence, she didn't want to see him risking his life in this situation. However, given the circumstances, there didn't seem to be a more suitable candidate. General Steele's strength is unquestionable, and his loyalty is unwavering. There's indeed a chance of successfully assassinating Julius with him. Wyatt nodded. As the captain of the Royal Guards, Jackson's strength was beyond doubt, and his loyalty was unwavering. General Steele, I don't mean to underestimate you, but relying solely on you might not be enough, Elijah suddenly said. Wait, what about that legendary executioner? Tyrus asked suddenly. He added, the name Executioner is famous far and wide. In terms of strength, he should be no less than General Steele, right? No, Sir Albert surpasses me by far, Jackson said truthfully. Despite being the captain of the Royal Guards and considered the top warrior in the castle, Rufus' true trump card was Albert, known as the Executioner. The three great generals of West Lucosia Sword Whisperer, Drunken Maniac, and the Executioner. With the Sword Whisperer fallen and the Drunken Maniac missing, the Executioner had become one of the top-tier warriors in West Lucosia, approaching the level of an ultimate grandmother. At that thought, Jackson couldn't help but feel inferior to Albert. Great, since the Executioner is more powerful than General Steele. It's better to have him on the mission for a higher chance of success, Tyrus said excitedly. Sorry, but Sir Albert has been missing since he left the castle. It's unlikely we can get him to help, Jackson said. Missing? Wyatt furrowed his brow. He asked, what is Sir Albert up to? The castle is in imminent danger, and this guy disappears. How outrageous! Could the Executioner have sensed the danger and fled? Tyrus asked tentatively. Sir Storm, choose your words carefully. Jackson's face turned cold. He added, Sir Albert is dedicated. He served the country and the people. He wouldn't possibly desert his post. My apologies. My mouth sometimes runs faster than my brain. Tyrus chuckled sheepishly. He had almost forgotten that Albert, the Executioner, had a significant reputation among the people of West Lucosia. Although Albert had been in the background for many years, his glorious achievements could never be erased. The name Executioner might be menacing to enemy nations. However, in the eyes of the people of West Lucosia, Sir Albert, the Executioner, was undoubtedly a savior. If Sir Albert isn't around, the chances of assassinating Julius are quite low. Elijah shook his head. I'm willing to give it a shot, even if it costs me my life, Jackson declared with determination. General Steele, I'm willing to assist you in succeeding. A dark-clad man stepped forward from the crowd. The man holding a black sword covered in blood was Dustin. Eloise scrutinized him and suddenly realized his identity. You're the mysterious fighter who single-handedly broke through the enemy ranks, capturing Draven and Mortimer, right? Mysterious fighter. With this revelation, everyone's gaze focused on Dustin. Except for Austin and Lincoln, no one present was aware of Dustin's true identity. Capturing to Sovereign's Lake, Draven and Mortimer from among tens of thousands of troops showcased his formidable strength. No way, this is too risky. Upon witnessing Dustin's inclination for a dangerous undertaking, Austin swiftly stepped in to stop his brother. Austin acknowledged Dustin's formidable strength, but Julius had gathered a considerable number of skilled individuals. Facing multiple challenges or opponents was always challenging. If the assassination failed, Dustin could find himself surrounded by those formidable adversaries. As the prospective prince of West Lucosia, Austin couldn't permit such a hazardous venture. Your Highness, sometimes risks must be taken. In crucial moments like this, sacrifices are inevitable, Tyrus remarked casually. Besides, he's just a guard. Why are you so uptight about it? I said it's not happening. Austin almost shouted. A formidable wave of intimidation surged, prompting Tyrus to step back in shock. It wasn't just Tyrus. Everyone looked at each other and was baffled. No one anticipated such a strong reaction from Austin. Seemingly aware that he had let his emotions get the better of him, Austin took a deep breath, suppressing the turbulence within. He calmly stated, "Uncle Tyrus, a guard's life is as valuable as ours. We can't let someone sacrifice themselves in vain. How can we earn the people's trust in the future if we let such a thing happen?" "Yes, Your Highness. You're absolutely right." Tyrus chuckled sheepishly, though silently. He assessed the situation and wondered if Austin had lost his mind. Tyrus couldn't help but wonder if making such a fuss over a guard was really necessary. "We can't do this, can't do that. What should we do now? Just sit around waiting to be defeated?" Wyatt sighed. "Well, I actually have a good idea." Elijah suddenly spoke up. "Oh, what is it?" Eloise raised an eyebrow. "Julius's confidence lies in the Black Dragon army. We can exploit that," Elijah suggested. He continued, "As you all know, aside from wartime, only His Highness and the Marshal's military insignia can command the Black Dragon army. Even if Julius can mobilize troops in the name of quelling unrest, the priority is still far below the Marshal's military insignia. If Your Highness wields the Marshal's military insignia, you can find a few key generals of the Black Dragon army overnight and persuade them to join our cause. In that case, Julius will lose his strongest support. Without the Black Dragon army, he won't pose much of a threat." While listening to this, Wyatt's eyes lit up. "That makes sense. Why didn't I think of it before?" He added, "As long as we control the Black Dragon army with the Marshal's military insignia, even if Julius has extraordinary abilities, he won't be able to stir up any trouble. Oh, by the way, Your Highness, the Marshal's military insignia should still be here, right?" Elijah suddenly asked. "It's here. His Highness's military insignia is hidden in a secure place." Eloise nodded. "Great." Elijah nodded. "To resolve the crisis, we need Your Highness to bring out the Marshal's military insignia." "Bring out the military insignia." Eloise frowned slightly. She had considered this before, but the Marshal's military insignia was important. In the past, Julius resorted to various forms of coercion and enticement, all in the pursuit of acquiring the Marshal's military insignia. If it was mishandled and fell into his hands, they would lose their last hope to turn the tables. In that case, he would be able to take the throne legitimately. Even if the king intervened, it wouldn't salvage the situation. "Your Highness, this is our only option now," Elijah persuaded. "Mom, bring out the military insignia. It's the only way to minimize unwarranted sacrifices," Austin said solemnly. This, Eloise hesitated for a moment, ultimately nodding. She went on, "All right, given the circumstances, we have no other choice. Please wait in the hall. Everyone, I'll go get the military insignia." She knew that, despite the risk involved, avoiding unnecessary conflict was the best option. In the castle's side hall, the Southern for sovereigns sat in a row, quietly waiting. Each of them bore a different expression, lost in contemplation. Elijah casually sipped his coffee. Lincoln rested with closed eyes. Tyrus observed the hall's arrangement, and Wyatt paced impatiently. After some time passed, Eloise entered the hall with Austin and Jackson, carrying an exquisite purple rosewood box. "Gentlemen, the Marshal's military insignia has arrived," she announced and delicately placed the rosewood box on the table. Upon unveiling its contents, it revealed a striking golden tiger token. The meticulously crafted tiger token emanated regal and imposing presence. Adorning its surface in resplendent gold were the words, "Symbol of armor," with the prince on the left and Lucosia on the right. Indeed, it's the Marshal's military insignia. Wyatt exclaimed, his eyes lighting up. He added, "With this insignia, we can command the Black Dragon army. Julius's scheme will crumble without a fight. Your Highness, time is of the essence. Hurry, take the insignia to the Black Dragon army's base. Meet with their leaders and explain your identity. Don't let Julius proceed any further, Tyrrus urged. The Marshal's military insignia is crucial. Julius won't sit idly by. Your Highness, this mission will be exceptionally dangerous. Be fully prepared, Lincoln reminded. I understand. I've discussed it with my mother. I'll dispatch 10 covert teams from various directions, and I'll blend in among them, Austin declared solemnly. He added, even if Julius is vigilant, he won't find me so easily. By the time he realizes the danger, I should already be at the Black Dragon Army's base. Very good. Your Highness, only you and Her Highness should know about this mission. Don't disclose it to a third person to avoid any mishaps, Lincoln advised. Thank you for the reminder, Uncle Lincoln. I'll be careful. Austin nodded. No time to waste. Let's get to work, Lincoln said. Wait a moment. Suddenly, Elijah spoke up. Is there something wrong with this insignia? Austin frowned. What's wrong with it? I remember the military insignia doesn't seem to look like this. Could it be swapped? Elijah said. Impossible. Eloise dismissed the idea. The military insignia is placed in a secure room. Only he and I know about it. It couldn't have been swapped. That's strange. Elijah narrowed his eyes, carefully examining the insignia. Uncle Elijah, could you be mistaken? Austin asked. I can't say for sure. Let me take a closer look, Elijah responded, taking the military insignia from Austin to examine it carefully. At that moment, Lincoln appeared to sense something. His expression abruptly changed. Your Highness, exercise caution with the military insignia.